to make it happen. But in the meantime, as I said yesterday, the Department of War will continue negotiating with bombs. War is negotiation by other means.
During Operation Epic Fury, the only thing that is preventing Iran's regime from being fully overwhelmed is the stranglehold that Iran has on the Strait of Hormuz. On the other hand, the Iranian hold is beginning to loosen. One of the most significant things that is happening in the Strait of Hormuz is that AH-64 Apache helicopters are giving a severe revenge to the Iranian regime for the activities that it has taken. A helicopter that is among the greatest that the United States has to offer was responsible for the recent attack that rocked Iran so severely that it made the country believe that the end of the world was near. Army recognition announced on March 22nd that the United States has deployed its Apache helicopters, along with another aerial asset that we will discuss later in the video, to strike against Iranian threats in the waterway of Hormuz, both along the shoreline and in the waterway itself. This was done in order to protect the United States from Iranian aggression. The United States has established near-air superiority throughout the southern coastline of Iran, and these combat helicopters will be operating in a controlled air environment that will allow them to deliver precision strikes against Iran's military and naval forces. They will be operating over the entirety of Iran's southern coastline. This is a significant action taken by the United States, and it indicates a shift in stance as the country works to secure the Strait of Hormuz, which will allow for the safe passage of dozens of commercial vessels that travel through the waterway. The Apache is an aerial capability that the United States possesses, and it brings a significant amount of firepower to the table. An early warning system of sorts for the rest of the United States' air power. The Apache is equipped with sensors that allow it to identify oncoming drones, fast boats, and other assets in the strait. This allows it to function as a kind of early warning system. The Apache will not require assistance in order to defend itself against these dangers. Iran has been sending tiny boats into the strait, and its Hellfire missiles are the appropriate countermeasure for them, since they fly quickly, hit hard, and are the ultimate countermeasure. When you add to it a maximum speed of 170 miles per hour, which is more than enough to keep up with even the quickest warship that Iran has been deploying against merchant ships in the strait, you get a helicopter that is able to detect threats, immediately react to them, and kill practically anything that is in its path. In just a few moments, we will discuss the reasons why Iran's fast boats in particular have become such a significant issue in the Strait of Hormuz. In the meantime, we will continue to highlight further aspects of what the Apache offers to the conflict. The military of the United States of America, Israel, the Netherlands, and Japan all use these helicopters for a specific purpose. These helicopters have been in service since the 1980s. The versatility of these assault helicopters places them among the most versatile in the world. Every Apache is equipped with a 30mm M230 chain gun that is located underneath its fuselage. This is in addition to the Hellfire missiles that we have already described. That gun has a shooting rate of 620 bullets per minute, which allows it to rip through boats and drones in a flash. Additionally, each Apache is equipped with 1,200 rounds of ammo, which ensures that it can fire repeatedly at a variety of targets. The amount of rounds that may be fired in a single second is approximately 10. In the Strait of Hormuz, the Apache will be confronted with a variety of dangers, and that is more than sufficient to eliminate such threats. In addition to Hellfire missiles, the United States also has other alternatives for its assault helicopter. It is also possible to load Stinger missiles, AIM-9 Sidewinders, sidearms, and Mistrals onto the Apache on a mission-by-mission basis. This provides the Apache with some air-to-air armament that it can unleash in the event that Iran is foolish enough to deploy any of its airframes in its antiquated air force against the United States. The Apache is also equipped with an electronic warfare suite that includes radio jammers, infrared countermeasures, and interference equipment. This makes it a flying death sentence for Iranian assets that are operating in and around the Strait of Hormuz. This is true even if the Apache is not using its primary weapons, and the situation is even more dire for Iran. Another capability of the Apache is the capacity to transport rockets that do not contain any explosives within them. It is strange to assert that this is a benefit for the American helicopter, but what it actually implies is that the Apache is able to launch rockets that, based solely on their kinetic energy, are capable of destroying even the most difficult targets. Taking this into consideration, consider one of the weapons that Iran has been employing in the Strait of Hormuz, which has the potential to be an ideal target for rockets of this kind. Every single day, Shahed drones are taking to the skies, and the Apache is equipped with this particular type of rocket, which allows it to eliminate such drones without the need to spend money on costly explosive material. In theory, the only thing that the rocket needs to do is strike its target, and the rest of the work is done by the kinetic energy. Additionally, the Apache is a deck hugger, which means that it can fly near to the surface of the water or low to the ground anytime it is required to do so. Therefore, if the United States of America is in need of a helicopter that is capable of coming quite close to coming face to face with the fast boats that Iran has been sending to the Strait of Hormuz, it has just provided itself with the ideal choice. For the time being, let's continue to focus on those fast boats. In spite of the fact that there are a number of reasons why the Apache is being deployed in the Strait of Hormuz, which we are going to be discussing in the near future, the most important thing is to deal with the Iranian watercraft. According to a report that was published in the Wall Street Journal on March 19th, the utilization of Apache helicopters signifies the beginning of a fresh operation to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. This comes after Iran had effectively blocked the waterway in the aftermath of Operation Epic Fury. Since the beginning of March, Iranian armed boats, mines, and cruise missiles have been preventing ship transit through the channel. The increased operation is a component of a multi-stage plan that the Pentagon is implementing to reduce the threat posed by these threats. It has been reported by the publication that the United States could send warships through the Strait of Hormuz and eventually escort vessels entering and exiting the Persian Gulf if the threat can be mitigated. In addition, the journal identifies the armed boats as one of the most significant objectives that the United States of America is aiming for. Apaches are mostly concerned about. How come all that is required of us is to investigate the manner in which Iran has been utilizing these vessels and the issues that they, together with Iran's other assets in the Strait of Hormuz, have been producing? In a piece published on March 13th, The Times provided an explanation of how Iran's naval strategies operate and the reasons why they have been so successful in the Strait of Hormuz. The rules of naval warfare that are traditionally followed are not followed by Iran. No, it does possess battleships, or it did possess warships. According to reports, the United States has been doing a decent job of eliminating those larger ships from the equation. As of the middle of March, it is estimated that approximately 60 of Iran's naval warships had been sunk. On the other hand, Iran's warships are not the primary components that make up its naval might. In the Strait of Hormuz, we are catching a glimpse of the reason why the speedboats are. These vessels, which are essentially speedboats that have been laden with bombs or weaponry, are not going to be able to put up much of a fight against American warships. Nevertheless, they are not meant to be able to hit those kinds of vessels. One of the things that the speedboats are able to do quite successfully is to charge toward massive container and cargo ships that are attempting to navigate through the Strait of Hormuz. As soon as they arrive, they immediately begin to unleash their firepower against the vessels that are unable to defend themselves and then they quickly sail away in order to go back into hiding. This is an example of an asymmetric strategy that is being implemented by a nation that is aware that it is unable to compete with the naval power of the United States. This technique enables Iran to cause a great deal of damage to ships that are not even a part of the war that is being waged against it. In addition, Iran is able to make use of these vessels for other objectives, as Kevin Rowland, a former member of the Royal Navy, reports to The Times. For the purpose of achieving a disproportionate impact, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, is employing tiny boat drones, jet skis, and mines. Rowland asserts that laying mines does not require a specialist warship. Rather, it can be accomplished by a rowing boat, depending on the type of mine. The United States of America is confronted with a navy that is unlike any other that it would have to contend with if it were to engage in combat with countries such as Russia or China. Iran is employing its swift boats to cause disruption in the Strait of Hormuz, while those nations would attempt to go warship to warship against the United States of America. Obviously, this is significant in the context of the possibility of cargo ships being attacked. Since the beginning of Operation Epic Fury on February 28th, Iran has reportedly attempted to sink at least 20 commercial vessels, as reported by ABC News in Australia. On a more physical level, these strikes are Iran's way of demonstrating to the rest of the world that the United States is unable to protect ships that attempt to travel through the Strait of Hormuz, which in essence imposes the blockade that we discussed previously. In addition, this blockade is the primary source of the issue, at least for the United States. Among all of the waterways in the globe, the Strait of Hormuz is considered to be among the most significant. Oil and gas tankers utilize it to transport their products from countries such as Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates to other parts of the world. It is a waterway that connects the Persian Gulf with the Arabian Sea. Customers of oil and gas transport their tankers to these countries by transporting them over the strait. When all of this is taken into consideration, around 20% of the world's oil and approximately the same amount of liquefied natural gas are transported through this single channel, which is only 33 kilometers or 25 miles wide at its narrowest point. Fast boats and drones from Iran are able to reach that distance in a relatively short amount of time. It has also been brought up that Iran's dominance over the Strait of Hormuz may potentially generate complications that would have an effect on the United States and its defense sector. This is due to the fact that essential minerals that are utilized in modern weaponry also flow through the canal. In addition, we are going to demonstrate why the Apache is the ideal solution to the stranglehold that Iran has established over the Strait of Hormuz in a moment. Now, however, a brief aside is in order. You should make sure that you are subscribed to Conflict Report if you are interested in seeing this kind of interesting insight. On a weekly basis, we break it out according to this format. To return to the issues that Iran is producing in the Strait of Hormuz, what we are witnessing here is that Iran is employing its asymmetric threat in order to counteract the barrage of aerial weapons that the United States has unleashed during Operation Epic Fury. Iran is unable to engage the United States in a head-to-head confrontation. However, it is able to send out lightning-fast boats and drones that the United States ships and the majority of its aircraft are not designed to handle. In this situation, the Apache comes into play. With Apaches flying over the Strait of Hormuz, the United States has an aircraft that is loaded with the sensors that are necessary to see fast boats approaching the speed that is necessary to catch up to those fast boats, and the firepower that is necessary to sink those boats, or even destroy the makeshift ports from which they are sent into the strait. When confronted with an asymmetric threat, this is a versatile reaction, It's not like Iran's drones, which are the regime's other major danger in the Strait of Hormuz, are going to get off lightly either. Oh, and it's not like they're going to get away with flying around. The same sensors that detect the presence of fast boats are also able to track the Shahed drones that Iran uses when they are in the air. We have already mentioned that the Apache is capable of flying at a low enough altitude to successfully oppose these terrain-hugging drones, and it possesses an abundance of choices that allow it to either shred the Shaheds into pieces or cause them to explode. In addition, Iran has already acquired a great deal of evidence to support its position that the Apache helicopter is the most suitable helicopter for this particular task. There is now video evidence that shows Apache helicopters destroying Shahed drones while they are in the air. The clip was released by the United Arab Emirates, which is yet another nation that deploys Apache helicopters. It depicts the view from the cockpit of an Apache helicopter as it approaches a Shahed drone. Following the firing of a single salvo from the M230 chain gun aboard the chopper, the Shahed explodes. It is a firepower that is both quick and effective, and we see it over and over again in the video that was posted. About half a dozen of Iran's Shaheds are blown out of the sky by Apache helicopters armed with chain guns. What we see here is that other nations are employing Apache helicopters for one of the specific tasks that the United States intends to deploy them for in the Strait. Nevertheless, it is possible that you already have a hunch about a difficulty that could arise. The film that was published by the United Arab Emirates was footage that was captured by helicopters that were flying in the sky of their nation. In and around the Strait of Hormuz, the situation is different from what it is elsewhere. Those are the skies over Iran, where the United States is getting ready to send helicopters that are not equipped with stealth capabilities. Isn't that a risky situation? Indeed, that is the case. Nevertheless, Iran's air defenses have been degraded to the point where helicopters, such as the Apache, are able to fly with a little chance of being targeted by surface-to-air missiles or volleys of fire from air defense systems on the ground. This is because Iran's air defenses have been completely destroyed. The United States of America has been successful in establishing a controlled air environment in which its Apaches are able to operate as was described earlier. Since the very beginning of Operation Epic Fury, such setting has been present a significant amount of time. The initial barrage of missiles and bombs that the United States of America and Israel unleashed on Iran was intended to damage every significant component of the country's military infrastructure, from the missile launch sites to the air defense network. According to statements made by Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense of the United States of America on March 4th, the United States will have complete control over the skies and airspace over Iran. Although Hegseth did not provide a specific time frame for the implementation of this control, he did make a veiled reference to the fact that the vast majority of Iran's air defense network had already been completely destroyed. During the third week of both Operation Epic Fury and Operation Roaring Lion, the Alma Research and Education Center reported that the Israeli Defense Force had asserted that around 85% of Iran's air defenses had been rendered inoperable. As a result of this kind of achievement, the Apache is given the opportunity. The helicopter belonging to the United States of America is now able to fly around the Strait of Hormuz with almost no obstructions. However, it must still take into consideration the danger that is posed by increasingly isolated remnants of Iran's air defenses that have been disconnected from the larger network that has been destroyed. Those fragments are being built up by subsequent airstrikes, which means that with each passing day, an environment that is even safer for the Apache to carry out its duties is created. When it comes to Iran's speedboats and drones in the Strait of Hormuz, the Apache is essentially free to concentrate its attention completely on them. On the other hand, it is possible that these assault helicopters are also laying the groundwork for something that will be significantly more catastrophic to Iran. If you are interested in learning more about that, you should stay with us until the very conclusion of the movie. You may recall that we indicated at the beginning that the AH-64 Apache is not the only aircraft that the United States is sending into the Strait of Hormuz. This is something that we say before we move on to discussing it. It is not the only one. When used in conjunction with the Apache, this aircraft places the United States in an even more advantageous position to reclaim control of the strait from Iran. It is the A-10 Warthog, the aircraft in question. And the firepower that it delivers in conjunction with the Apache is sufficient to cause any Iranian fast boat operator to pause and reconsider their decision. Some commentators on this same channel have made jokes about the A-10 being more like a gun with an aircraft attached to it, rather than an aircraft with a gun attached to it. This is because the A-10 is equipped with a GAU-8A 30mm cannon. What we know for certain is that this cannon is capable of easily destroying drones and fast boats. In addition, it is accompanied by the AGM-65 Maverick missiles and a variety of precision-guided munitions that the United States is able to use to strike ground targets, such as missile launch sites and ports on the coast of the Strait of Hormuz. Similar to the Apache, the A-10 is able to fly at low altitudes, which enables it to accurately identify and destroy targets in a canal where both civilian and military assets are present. In addition, the A-10 is able to sustain some ground fire thanks to its titanium armor, which protects it from a significant number of the isolated Iranian air defense systems that we discussed before. As a result of the control that the United States currently has over Iranian airspace, the United States is able to combine two of its older aerial capabilities into a layered strategy. This is precisely what we are seeing today. At this time, it is highly probable that Apache helicopters will be patrolling the Strait of Hormuz. These helicopters will be responsible for eliminating drones and fast boats. Although the A-10s are capable of doing the same thing, and may very well do so when it is necessary, it is more likely that they would concentrate on the coastline, where they will be able to attack missile launch locations and ports. What this amounts to is a continual aerial threat being presented in the Strait of Hormuz, which makes it significantly more difficult and hazardous for Iran to carry out its asymmetric strategies in the canal. Moreover, there is more. As we mentioned earlier, it is possible that the Apaches and the Strait of Hormuz are preparing for something that is more significant than what they are involved in at the moment. Someone or something might very well be the coming of ground soldiers from the United States, which many people believe are on their way to Iran in order to take control of Karg Island. The 11th Marine Expeditionary Unit is currently going at a breakneck pace in the direction of the Middle East. This single unit, which is comprised of two 200 U.S. on March 18th Marines, embarked on their journey from San Diego, following in the footsteps of the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, which had embarked on its journey heading for Iran from the Indo-Pacific region just 1 week earlier. In other words, the United States is deploying more than 4,000 Marines in the direction of Iran, and the rumor is that they are currently on the move as the United States moves forward. Trump, the President of the United States, is considering the prospect of launching a ground assault on Karg Island. Given that this is a subject for a different video, we won't delve into the possible implications of that assault. With that being said, if this kind of assault is the plan, then it makes even more sense that Apache helicopters are now flying in the Strait of Hormuz to begin with. It is sufficient to examine the United States' previous wars in Iraq and Afghanistan in order to see the reason behind this. A combination of Apache helicopters and Warthog attack aircraft were utilized by the United States military in both instances to provide assistance to ground forces during the first stages of these wars. Additionally, these aircraft have the capability to suppress enemy positions, which could prove to be quite useful in situations such as the elimination of missile launch sites in the vicinity of Karg Island in Iraq. Additionally, Apache helicopters were utilized in Iraq for the purpose of carrying out deep assault operations against armored formations in advance of ground advances. Is it possible that we may witness something comparable on Karg Island? The United States has already destroyed the island's military infrastructure, but they have still managed to save the island's oil facilities. However, what if the true objective was all along for the United States to seize control of the oil terminal and other infrastructure on Karg Island? This would allow the United States to suffocate the one piece of territory that Iran's regime cannot afford to lose if it is to continue to be economically viable, regardless of the outcome of a war with the United States. What transpires on Karg Island is something that we will have to wait and see. In the event that the Iranian regime does not end up putting forces on the ground, the Apaches that are flying above the Strait of Hormuz are a significant source of concern for them. Iran's swift boats and drones, which it uses to exercise control on that waterway, are now in the firing line, and every rattle of an M230 chain gun will serve as a reminder that the United States is capable of finding answers to every problem that Iran attempts to create. Regarding the A-10s that are currently stationed in the Strait, we have released an in-depth analysis of the reasons why these aircraft are so significant and the ways in which the United States is utilizing them now that they are in Iran. If you are interested in learning more about how an aircraft that some people have deemed to be obsolete is in fact anything, but you should watch that video. In addition, if you found this video to be enjoyable, please sure to subscribe to our channel so that you do not miss any of our coverage of Operation Epic Fury. In addition, I want to always thank you for watching.